So, some backstory here. A couple of months ago, my mother-in-law asked me if I'd be willing to make monthly contributions because she was sponsoring the college fund of 3 teenagers. She told me it was a charity thing, that the kids were picked at random, and that they wouldn't meet us at any point. I said yes, because it's a good thing that I'd be doing, so why not, right? I'm the head of marketing at a firm, and I make a decent income, so I can afford it too. My husband and I don't have any kids of my own. We're in our late 30s and we don't plan on having any either, so this seemed like a good idea at the time, and I agreed to make monthly contributions to help her and 3 random underprivileged kids out for their future. I'd send her money every month within the second week and then pretty much forget about it. But this month, just 4 hours back, I couldn't forget about it, because those 3 kids actually turned up at my house. I'd never seen them before, so I didn't understand why there were 3 random teenage boys at my doorstep. When I asked them what they wanted, they said they wanted to meet Uncle Jack. Jack is my husband's nickname, and what most of his family calls him. I was taken aback by that, and asked them who exactly they were looking for, and they mentioned my husband by name. So I knew that they wanted to see my husband. He wasn't at home at the time, so I invited the kids in to try and get to the bottom of this. I asked them a bunch of questions about their parents, their lives, and why they were here to see Uncle Jack. After they answered those questions, I realized that these kids were actually my husband's nephews. The oldest was 16, the youngest was 13, and the middle child was 14. They were my husband's estranged older sister's kids who had recently gotten back in touch with my husband's family. The reason they were here to see my husband was because their mother wanted them to thank him for everything, and so they were here. The kids had no idea that I was their uncle's wife when they first saw me, because they had absolutely no idea their uncle was married. I was just as surprised as they were, because up until a few hours ago, I didn't even know my husband had a sister. In our 5 years of marriage, it had never come up even once. I'd never seen any pictures either, and my in-laws never brought it up. Their house was literally devoid of any and all traces of another sibling, and had been for as long as I'd known my husband. I don't know how they managed to keep a secret like this from me for so long, because I've known my husband for almost 7 years, and we've been married for 4. The kids left about half an hour before my husband came back home. He'd been out meeting a couple of his friends and had been in a good mood when he came back, which for some reason made me even more mad. So as soon as he entered the house, I snapped at him and demanded an explanation. I told him about the visit from his nephews and asked him why exactly had he not felt it was necessary to inform me that he had an older sister whom I'd never heard about before, and apparently I was funding their college education as well now. I was more annoyed about the fact that my husband had definitely known about all of this, but had kept this huge secret from me for several months. For as long as I'd been paying those installments to his mother, when I confronted him, he still refused to open up to me about it and said that he'd return the money to me if that's what I wanted, but he wasn't ready to discuss this. That made me blow up because of 2 reasons. Firstly, I was incensed because I'm not that kind of a miser who cares so much about my money that I'll snatch it back from a bunch of teens. The money was actually the least of my concerns. Secondly, he wasn't ready to talk about this. We'd been together for 7 years, and I'd been paying for his nephew's college fund for a couple of months now, so I think it was about damn time that he came clean to me about his family. Not being ready just didn't cut it as an excuse, so we ended up getting into this massive argument over it. We must have been arguing for almost an hour before he grabbed his coat and left the house again. I tried to stop him, but he didn't listen and walked out anyway. I already hate this about him, and today, when he walked out in the middle of our fight, I decided to lock him out. He didn't have his spare keys on him, and I knew that, so when he came back after half an hour, I expected him to ring the doorbell or text me or call, or even just yell out to get me to open the door. I did it to get a reaction out of him, but he did none of those things, and instead, when he realized that the door was locked from the inside, he just left. I heard his car pull up in the driveway first, then heard him try to turn the knob several times, and after a while, he just gave up, and I heard him take off in his car once more. It's been a while since then, and I've cooled off a little. But I'm still really annoyed about his behavior today, not to mention the secrets he's kept from me. I called my mother to vent about this a few minutes ago, and I told her all about the row that we had, the fact that I locked him out, and how he didn't say a word but just left. I expected her to sympathize with me and tell me that I was right, but she said that I might have been too hard on him. My mom thinks that if my husband says that he's still not ready, then it definitely means something terrible must have happened in their past to warrant such a reaction from him as soon as I brought up the topic of his estranged sister. He had never mentioned having a sister, and neither does his family talk about her. So she's right. Something really big must have happened for them to completely erase any traces of her from their life and homes. My mom told me that I should have tried to be a little more understanding, and even though she didn't really blame me or put me down for reacting the way I did, I definitely do feel guilty about it now. So am I the a-hole for snapping at my husband when I find out that he has an older sister and I've been funding her 3 kids' college education without my knowledge? Update 1. Yesterday I made the original post here, and this morning my husband finally came back. I was going to apologize to him for reacting so badly, but he didn't bother coming back home last evening. I stayed up till 1 in the morning waiting for him in the living room and fell asleep on the couch watching TV. Thanks to that, I have a nasty crick in my neck right now, too. I woke up to him ringing the doorbell like a madman, and when I finally let him in, he didn't even bother to look at me or talk to me. He just grabbed a few clothes, shoved them in a duffel bag, and left once more, without a goodbye or even an explanation. I tried to speak to him, but he just ignored me like I wasn't even there, and he couldn't even hear me. This happened like an hour ago, and my blood is still boiling at the thought of his behavior. It was so incredibly disrespectful and humiliating that I don't feel sorry at all for the way I behaved last evening. He hasn't explained a thing to me regarding his estranged older sister, and when I called my mother-in-law last night to talk to her about this, she didn't answer my calls either. She also didn't open my texts, so I'm sure they're all teaming up against me to keep this secret from me. I wasn't going to ask for my money back because initially I'd intended it to go to charity and didn't think it was right to demand it back, but now I think I'm going to text my mother-in-law and tell her to return all the money I'd been sending her over the past couple of months. I'm just so pissed right now at my husband, my mother-in-law, and their entire bloody family that I'm ready to file for divorce over this. There was literally no reason for my husband to act the way he did this morning, because I was just trying to talk to him so I could tell him that I was sorry for overreacting and not caring about his feelings. Then we'd sit down and have a civilized conversation about this so I could find out the truth. But if that's not what he wants, then I don't know what to do. I told my mom about it too, and she thinks that now my husband is the one taking things a little too far. I want to do something about this. But before that, I really need some answers. Update 2. My husband just came back home a few hours back. It's around midnight right now, and he came back at 5 in the evening after being out for almost 7 hours. We're both going to have to go back to work tomorrow because it's a Monday, so I wanted to discuss this and get it all over with today itself. It was really difficult, but I somehow swallowed my pride and told him that we needed to talk. Once he came back home and freshened up, he didn't say much but just nodded, and after a while we sat on the couch awkwardly. I waited for him to say something, but when he didn't, I realized that I'd have to be the one to break the ice first. I apologized to him for reacting the way I did, and only then did he say that he was apologetic too for behaving badly with me this morning. Once we were done with that, I finally asked him the million-dollar question. Why had he and his family kept the truth from me about his sister for so many years? Now that I'm aware of the whole story, I can see why he wouldn't want to talk about it. It's crazy, and I don't want to discuss it, but I kind of owe it to you guys. I also just have to get it off my chest somehow and tell somebody about it. I can't tell my family about it because it made me swear I won't, and I certainly cannot tell my friends. So people on Reddit will never know our real identity it is. His older sister, Jennifer, is 40 years old now, and over 2 decades ago, when she was just 18 and my husband was 14, she'd run away with her boyfriend at the time. My in-laws didn't like her boyfriend for very valid reasons, because her boyfriend was 25 years old, which wouldn't be a problem in itself, but he was also a known stoner. He'd been smoking pot and drinking since he was 15, which was unsurprising as his dad was the guy who actually sold pot to most of the high school and college kids in their area. Jenny had been in a relationship with this guy for just about a year before they eloped. and that year had been really bad for their family. Jenny herself had started smoking and was a rebel without a cause all of a sudden. My in-laws didn't like that change, and they definitely didn't like that boyfriend of hers, so they tried to pressure her into leaving him. They used to starve her on the days she came back home smelling of smoke or alcohol, which I don't think was the right thing to do, and my husband agrees. My in-laws were pretty damn harsh with their punishments, which is what pushed Jenny to run away. They'd starve her, yell at her all the time, and would try to stalk her whenever she'd left the house, when there were 1,000 gentler and more effective methods they could have tried out instead. My husband didn't say it, but it was implied that his parents were way more toxic towards her than her boyfriend could have ever been. Their behavior is what alienated the girl even more, and she ended up running away with her boyfriend a month before her 18th birthday. Once she ran away, they didn't even bother looking for her or calling the cops. Jenny had told Jack all about her whereabouts, so it technically didn't even count as running away, because they knew where to find her, they just didn't try to. Of course, they'd not want this story to come out because my in-laws do not come off well in this story. My husband's parents forced him to sever all ties with her as well, and a few months later, when she tried to reach out to them, they refused to speak to her. It wasn't even for money or help, she just genuinely wanted to apologize to them and reconnect with her parents, but they were done with her and shunned her. That was the last they heard from her until recently. Earlier this year, Jenny's husband passed away, so then she tried to reconnect with her estranged family once more, now that she was on her own, and needed emotional support to get through this. This time my mother-in-law had been kinder and had accepted her back into the family, but they'd had to keep it a secret from me, because they didn't know how to tell me and couldn't find the right time to say anything. Apparently, Jenny had been married to her boyfriend from all those years ago, and these were his kids. He'd cleaned up his act and sobered up when she got pregnant for the first time, so they could provide for themselves and their kids. He'd been working as a car salesman, which is the only job he could manage without a college degree, and Jenny was a sap. They'd had an all-right life so far and had raised 3 good kids, but, unfortunately, her husband had passed away from a sudden heart attack at the beginning of this year. After Jenny reconciled with my in-laws, my husband helped her find a job to be able to support her kids, and she was currently working in his office as a receptionist. That's what the kids had come by to say thanks for, because she had no idea that her brother was married now, and her sister-in-law, also known as me, had no idea she even existed. As for the college fund money, my mother-in-law had promised Jenny that she'd pay for all 3 of her kids, but that was a lot of money, and she herself relied on whatever my father-in-law had left her, so she was doubtful about whether she'd actually be able to fund them all. That's the reason why she'd asked me for help, and my husband had also been contributing. She had to lie to me and tell me it was for charity because they weren't ready to talk to me about this just yet. After my husband explained the entire story to me, I did understand why he hadn't been willing to bring any of this up, because the way I perceived him and his family had changed completely now. Unfortunately, my understanding did not mean that I was going to forgive it all just like that. He had lied to me not just for a few months, but 7 whole years, which was a really big deal. Earlier, my anger towards my husband, because of his behavior, had at least helped me take my mind off of the lies. But now there was no running away from it, and I had to confront the truth anyhow. If I'm going to be honest, I don't know how to feel about any of this. I really just don't have a clue, because this is so bizarre and new to me. I mean, my husband had a sister all this time, and they'd had such a horrible history with her. But he didn't think he owed me the truth, even after they made up. He'd been at his mom's house when he wasn't here, and they'd concluded that now it was finally time to come clean to me about Jenny. I mean, I'd been contributing to her kids' college funds for several months now, but all this time I'd been thinking it was for charity. I don't mind it because it still did help some kids. What I do have an issue with is the lies. My husband knows very well that I had really bad trust issues in the past because I'd been cheated on by my ex-boyfriend in the past, and it had taken us a long time to establish this trust in our relationship and marriage, but now it's all gone. He wasn't cheating on me or anything of the sort, but despite that, I felt really betrayed that he'd kept such a huge thing from me just because he was afraid I wouldn't think of his family the same way if he told me. I can understand why he'd want to keep this a secret, but I won't forgive it, and quite frankly, I think it was a really stupid excuse too. I've told my husband I need some time to think about what I want to do now, but I honestly have no idea what to do. I mean, I'm mad at him, I'm upset about what he did, and I'm definitely not on board with any of this, but even then, I don't just want to leave him over something so petty and silly. I have no idea what to do anymore. Update 3. Hi. So it's been 3 days since my last update here, and I'm still with my husband. I haven't made up my mind on what to do next about our relationship, but I have been looking into marriage counselors because that seems like a good option if I want to make it work. We've been keeping our distance ever since the big reveal 3 days back. He's been giving me my space and has pretty much been walking on eggshells around me, which feels weird, but I appreciate it because that's what I need right now. Space. He did ask me if I wanted to meet his sister yesterday, but I told him that I needed some time. I'm not ready yet to just meet this woman who has given me the shock of my life. My mother-in-law also texted me yesterday to apologize for everything and told me that she could return the money from the fund if that's what I wanted, but I told her she could keep it. If it's helping a bunch of kids, then what the hell? I don't care about that anyway. I don't have any kids of my own, so it's fine if my money helps someone else's kids. I haven't forgiven my mother-in-law yet either, because for one, if she and her husband had just been better parents to Jenny, then maybe they wouldn't have had to go to such lengths at all. But they went a different way, and then covered it all up for the next 2 decades. They're fine with it all now, but unfortunately, now I'm the one who's having major relationship problems with my husband over this situation. That have made their way to school. Jenny and I haven't spoken yet, but I know that she's apologetic for how this has all turned out as well. My husband forwarded a text from her to me 2 days ago, which she apologized to me for springing this on me without warning. She didn't know that my husband was married now and had just told her kids to say thanks. My husband hadn't been able to spend much time with the kids because he'd been very busy with work, so her kids had taken it upon themselves to visit him and also convey the message of thanks that Jenny had told them to. Unfortunately, they'd just picked the wrong time, and that's what had led to all of this. On the bright side, at least the kids' decision to thank him on that very day had led to this huge revelation. So, I guess I have them to thank for this now. Update 4. So, it's been over 2 months since my last update. I have a lot of things to share that have happened over the last 2 months, and I'm thankful that most of these are good things. I started attending marriage counseling sessions with my husband about a month ago after a lot of discussions, and I think we are making progress. We're addressing a lot of problems that we didn't think were important enough to acknowledge earlier, but now we're doing a lot better. I wouldn't say that our relationship has gone back to how it was earlier, because it's just been a month, and that's not enough to undo all the damage that had been caused by his lies. What I will say is that we're on the right track relationship-wise now, and hopefully it'll only get better from here onwards. I've also met my sister-in-law Jenny a couple of times now. The first time I met her was 5 weeks back, and it was nice. Her kids and I already knew each other, and it was good to see them again. They apologized for the screw-up and thanked me for having them over the day they visited, despite not knowing who they were. It was nice to get to know them all, and Jenny and I really got along well, despite the initial awkwardness. My mother-in-law and my husband were also there, and they seemed happy at the way things were going at our first meeting. We've all decided to be a lot more open and close now, so we're trying to get together at least once every 2 weeks. I'm still trying to get used to this new family that I have, but it's going well, so I know we'll all be all right eventually. There are going to be no more lies separating us all, and I'm really thankful for that. Update 5. Hey everyone. I'm back here after almost 2 years, and wow, it feels weird to go back and read the way I felt initially about the people I'm so close to now. Jenny and I are best friends now. She's honestly the best person I've ever met in my entire life, and I'm so grateful that she's my sister-in-law. Her oldest is starting college in the fall, and that just made me realize how long it's been since I first met the kid. I suddenly remembered this thread while I was reminiscing with my husband about how long it's been and how far we've come since then, and decided to come check it out. Easily the best decision I made, because I'd missed several beautiful comments and messages after my last update, which I never would have found out about unless I came back to this post. So, To fill you guys in on what's been up, my husband and I have been doing well and our marriage is as strong as ever. The marriage counseling sessions did us a load of good, and I'd strongly suggest that to anyone having issues in their marriage right now. I didn't have much faith in that earlier because I really used to think that if your marriage is at a point where you even need to consider counseling, then it's pretty much over. Thankfully, I've been proven wrong since. Jenny's also doing great and has been promoted to an assistant job now. She's moved into a bigger apartment, and her oldest is going to be attending one of the best medical schools in the state on a scholarship. That kid's a hard worker and has earned this, so we're all extremely proud of him. We're also proud of his mother, and us as a family. We've all come really far.